Did you know that there's a city in the north of Israel that's been known as the mystical city for 500 years? Shalom, everybody. My name is Akiva Gersh, and welcome to Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or you want to add to the discussion, please do so below in the comments. So as I was saying, there was this beautiful, cute city in the north of Israel on top of a mountain called Tzfat. And its history is long and its history is beautiful. It goes back centuries, many, many centuries, even thousands of years. But the main part of its story and why it became known as the mystical city of Israel goes back around 500 years ago. And we need to understand a little bit of the context. It was right after the Jews were kicked out of Spain in 1492, after hundreds of years of living there and developing a thriving and beautiful culture. Now, unfortunately, getting kicked out of countries was nothing new to the Jews, but there was something very specific about the Jews and something different and unique and even more devastating about the Jews getting kicked out of Spain. One, because it had become this large center of Jewish life, of Jewish study, of Jewish culture in the world. And also there wasn't, the Jews there didn't seem to find a reason, like, why is this happening? It didn't make any sense, right? They were part of the culture, they were integrated. They weren't like, separate and all different. Of course, they were Jews and they were doing their Jewish thing, but they had become so integrated in the culture and the society, so much so that there were government advisors who were Jewish, Jews who were involved with economics and philosophy and all kinds of amazing things. It was this really beautiful and somewhat rare example of outside of Israel, of Jews becoming so integrated in a very positive way in the outside culture while being able to still maintain their own unique, specific Jewish identity and culture. So when the Jews got kicked out in 1492, hundreds of thousands of them, they scattered. Some went to Portugal, others went to North Africa, some to what we call the land we would call Turkey today. And some came back to the land of Israel. They said, after all of this, let's just go home and let's try to figure this out, because it was very confusing for them. It didn't make sense. And a number of them made their way to the north of Israel on top of this mountain where there was already a community, but they added to the community and they strengthened the community. And eventually, a good 10,000 Jews lived there. And there were dozens and dozens of synagogues and places of study. And it became a thriving center of Jewish life in the land of Israel, even more so at the time than Jerusalem. There are many leading rabbis, right? Maybe some of you know the song Lecha Dodi, which is traditionally sung Friday night to welcome in Shabbat, was written there, right? Where the rabbis, the people living there, who many of them were very much into the deep, more esoteric aspects of Judaism, the deeper spiritual parts called Kabbalah, right? Jewish mysticism, where they would wear all white on Shabbat and they would go out into the fields and they would pray and they would meditate and they would literally like welcome in Shabbat. Right? This became a very, very important center of Jewish life and Jewish spirituality for many, many years. And the influence of that is still felt today. Right? You have some of the most important rabbis of the past many, many hundreds of years who lived there, taught there, wrote books there, and created groups of students there. I'll just name a couple: Rabbi Yosef Karo, who wrote one of the most important books of Jewish law, and Rabbi Isaac Luria, who became one of the most important Jewish mystics of all time, one of the leading Kabbalists, right? The masters of Jewish mysticism of all time. Anything that anybody learns today about Jewish mysticism really goes back to him and his understanding and his explanation. Right. And in Tzfat, you really saw this beautiful kind of meshing of the physical and the spiritual. Right. One of the reasons why Jews even came to Tzfat in the first place is because there was a river down below in the valley, and that provided economic, opportunities. So very, very physical things brought them to this place. But on top of this mountain, it became a very, very spiritually enlightened place to live. Now, in Israel, there are 4 holy cities. Okay, Jerusalem, Tiberias, Hebron, and Tzfat. And each one of them is linked to a different element of the world. Jerusalem is fire. Tiberias is water. It's right next to the Sea of Galilee. Hebron is earth, because the patriarchs and the matriarchs are buried there. Jerusalem is fire, by the way, because of the fire that used to burn on the altar in the temple. And Tzfat, because it's on top of a mountain, is air. Now you go to Tzfat and literally you feel like you entered a different reality. Right? You go there today, it's a thriving community today. And in the old city of Tzfat, as we call it, right, where the original Tzfat used to be, you still have this very, very deep, special focus on spirituality, on Jewish mysticism, on Kabbalah. The community there, for the most part, people live very, very simply, right? They're there to enjoy Tzfat, the beautiful nature all around Tzfat. It's on top of this mountain. There's just mountains all around, and valleys and hiking trails and rivers and natural springs. It's a gorgeous place to live. Um, so they're inspired by that, and that's one of the reasons why so many artists eventually moved to Tzfat, because of the beauty all around that inspired their artwork. But people really do go there for a simple life, a simple home, a simple lifestyle, so that they cannot get distracted so much by all the physical stuff, which is important, right? But so that they have more time, so to speak, and space in their lives to focus on the spiritual. And you still feel that today. And that's why you go to Tzfat today and you see tons of tour groups coming through, because they want to see it, they want to sense it. It's a very different city as compared to any other place in Israel. Right? You don't see places like this. I mean, there's beautiful spiritual places in Israel, but as a city, it's very, very unique. One last thing I'll share just about Tzfat, and this goes back hundreds of years ago, is you see the color blue really everywhere, wherever you go. Um, and the reason for that is that blue is a spiritual color, according to Judaism. There's actually an ancient teaching that says that blue is the color of on the tzitzit, right? The fringes that Jewish men traditionally wear in the corners of their garments. One string is supposed to be blue. Um, and so blue is the color of the tzitzit, right? Which is the color of the sea, which is the color of the sky, which is the color of the kisei kavod, the throne of glory that God sits on. So really, this color blue is supposed to kind of, inspire us, motivate us to, while still living in this physical world, to remember the spiritual world and to bring those two together, which Tzfat does so beautifully. So here we have this ancient city with this beautiful story, right? After a really horrible, tragic time in Jewish history with the Jews getting kicked out of Spain, but coming back home, back to Israel, and specifically to Tzfat, to really reorganize their lives and refocus and go a little bit maybe deeper into understanding, like, why are we here and why do things happen the way that they do. And Tzfat has really retained that kind of atmosphere and focus for all these hundreds of years, and you can still experience it today.